Hello, I'm glad you're here. Tell me something. Do you ever wake up in the morning and immediately think, here we go again? Not that anything bad is happening. It's just nothing in particular is happening. Breakfast, work, lunch, work, dinner, a show, sleep, repeat. Over and over, week after week, month after month. Maybe you remember a time when the weekend was something you genuinely looked forward to, when a new movie in the cinema felt like an event, when planning a vacation gave you butterflies, when meeting friends gave you enough energy to carry you through the entire next week. And now the weekend passes and you don't even know what you spent it on. A movie, you watch it and forget it the next day. A vacation? It was nice, but do you really feel any different than before you left? A meetup? Pleasant, sure, but on the way home, you're already thinking about what you have to do on Monday. If you know this feeling, stay. This episode is for you. Today, we're going to talk about something that affects many people in their 30s, 40s, 50s. The feeling that life is moving, but you're somehow not moving with it, that you're watching your days from the sidelines, that everything is fine, but nothing is truly exciting. It's a hard feeling to name. You're not depressed, at least that's what it seems like. You function. You get up. You go to work. You come back. You do what needs to be done. You pay the bills. You pick up the kids from school. You cook dinner. You answer emails. From the outside, everything looks normal. Because what would even be wrong? You didn't lose your job. Your marriage didn't fall apart. You didn't get sick. You're just living. But somewhere inside, there's this feeling, this flatness, as if someone changed the color settings of your life, as if the colors faded. Maybe sometimes you catch yourself staring out the window and you don't even know what you're thinking about. You sit in front of the TV and you can't remember what you're watching. You finish the day and you can't name a single thing that brought you joy. And maybe you think, is this what the rest of my life is going to look like? And importantly, we'll talk about why this happens. Because it's not a matter of personality. It's not laziness. It's not that you don't appreciate what you have. Part of this change is biological. Your brain and body work differently than they used to. That's not an excuse. It's an explanation. And there's a difference. But it doesn't mean you're doomed to a life with faded colors. There are things you can do, concrete, research-based, realistic. Before we go further, I have a question. I'd love to hear your perspective. Write in the comments. What recently made you feel excited? Maybe it was a moment, a conversation, a place, a taste, a smell. Anything? Maybe it was something big, or maybe it was a small detail. And if you can't remember such a moment, write that too. That's important information as well. There are no wrong answers. There's only your truth. Okay. Let's start by naming what we're talking about. Because when we can't name something, it's harder to work with it. In psychology, there's a concept called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure from things that used to be enjoyable. But anhedonia is an extreme state and often accompanies clinical depression. It's the point where even your favorite food tastes like cardboard, where you watch a sunset and feel nothing. What we're talking about today is milder, more common, and precisely because of that, often ignored. Sociologist Corey Keyes from Emory University called this state languishing. It's the state where you're not depressed, but you're not flourishing either. You drift You function, but without a spark. You live, but only halfway. In his research, Keyes found that this state affects a surprisingly large part of the population, people who don't meet criteria for any mental disorder, yet still don't feel well. They don't feel bad either. They just don't feel. In one of his studies, nearly 1/4 of adult Americans were in this state, functioning, but not flourishing, living, but not fully living. The COVID pandemic dramatically increased the number of people experiencing this. Isolation, uncertainty, disrupted routines. All of it contributed to millions of people drifting, and many still are. I like a simpler phrase, life without flavor, or life without color. Imagine you're eating your favorite meal, but your nose is blocked. Technically, you eat, you chew, you swallow, but you don't sense the aroma. There's just matter on the plate. The function is fulfilled, you're getting calories, but the experience is empty. That's what life can feel like when we lose the ability to feel excitement. On the surface, everything is fine. You have a job, you have a roof over your head, maybe you have family, friends. Nothing dramatically bad is happening, but something is missing. That's something more. That vibration, that feeling that the day ahead is full of possibility, like something interesting could happen. Do you remember that feeling from childhood? When a Saturday morning promised adventure. When summer felt endless. When even an ordinary walk could bring a discovery. Do you remember the excitement before birthdays? The inability to fall asleep on Christmas Eve? The butterflies before a school trip? Do you remember how a new video game, a new book, a new film could fill you with joy for weeks? How you could talk with a friend for hours about nothing important and feel good? Where did that go? When did it disappear? Is it just adulthood? Does it have to be this way? Not necessarily. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. And you know what? Many people live like this for years, without seeking help, without saying it out loud. Because how do you tell someone, you know, my life is fine, but I just don't feel? It sounds strange, even ungrateful. Others have it worse, right? People without jobs, without homes, sick, lonely, and you have everything and you complain, but your experience is real, and it deserves attention. You don't have to wait until things get truly bad to start doing something about it. You don't have to prove you deserve help or change. You can simply want to live more fully, and that's enough. Now the key question, why does this happen? Why does life so often lose its color with age? The answer has layers. There are psychological factors, accumulated disappointments, unfulfilled dreams, exhaustion from constantly adapting to expectations. There are social factors, isolation, productivity pressure, comparison to others. There are existential factors, awareness of time passing, questions about meaning. But today, let's focus on the layer people talk about the least, biology. Your brain at 30 or 50 is not the same brain you had at 15 or 20. And that's not a metaphor. It's a neurological fact, confirmed by thousands of studies. In the brain, we have something scientists call the reward system, a network of structures, the nucleus accumbens, the prefrontal cortex, the ventral tegmental area, responsible for motivation and pleasure. This system evolved over millions of years. Its job was to motivate us toward things important for survival: eating, reproduction, exploration, social bonding. When you do something good for your genes, the reward system gives you pleasure. It's a built-in incentive system. A key player in this system is dopamine, but dopamine doesn't work the way most people think. Dopamine isn't a happiness hormone. It's more like the wanting chemical. It makes you desire something. It makes something feel worth the effort. It makes the future feel promising. Dopamine shows up not mainly when you get the reward, but when you anticipate it. That's why looking forward to a vacation can feel better than the vacation itself. That's why planning dinner is often better than eating it. Research from Vanderbilt University showed something fascinating. People with higher dopamine activity in certain brain areas are more willing to work for a reward. They'll climb stairs to get a bigger treat at the top, instead of taking a smaller one right away. People with lower dopamine activity choose easier options even if the reward is smaller. They feel less drive. They see less point in effort. And here's the catch. Dopamine activity naturally declines with age. Brain imaging studies show a decline of about 10% per decade from early adulthood. That means a 50-year-old brain may have 20 to 30% lower dopaminergic activity than a 20-year-old brain. What does that mean in practice? It means the same things that used to spark excitement may now spark nothing or very little. Not because you become boring, not because something is psychologically wrong with you. Your brain is simply processing reward signals differently now. It's like listening to music on speakers that gradually lose power over time. Same song, just quieter. There's another mechanism just as important: habituation. Your brain is designed to respond to novelty. It's a survival mechanism. A new stimulus might mean danger, a predator, poison, an enemy, or opportunity, new food, a potential partner, better territory. It's worth paying attention. But when a stimulus repeats, the brain stops reacting. Oh, this again, not important, save energy. That's adaptive. You don't want to react to every sound in your home. You don't want to be amazed every morning that you have hands. Habituation filters out what's familiar, so you can focus on what's new. The problem is, as we age, we accumulate experiences. We've seen, heard, tried, lived through more. To the brain, the world becomes increasingly known, and therefore less interesting. That's why a trip to an exotic country can be thrilling the first time. Everything is new: smells, taste, sights, sounds. The brain is fully alert, absorbing information. And the third time, still nice, but without that wow. You know what to expect. The brain says, I know this, not important. Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert studied this phenomenon for decades. He found that people systematically overestimate how long they'll feel happy after positive events. A raise? You're happy for a few weeks, then it becomes the new normal. A new car? Excitement lasts maybe a month, then it's just your car. A bigger house? A year later, you barely notice the extra space. This isn't pessimism, it's hedonic adaptation, a built-in brain mechanism that returns us to our baseline level of happiness, regardless of what happens. It makes evolutionary sense. If you were permanently delighted after one success, you'd have no motivation to pursue the next. But it has a dark side. It makes satisfaction fleeting. A third factor, often underestimated: circadian rhythms. With age, melatonin production changes, the hormone that regulates sleep. We fall asleep earlier, wake earlier. Sleep becomes lighter, more fragmented. We spend less time in deep sleep and REM. Maybe you remember how you could sleep until noon when you were younger. Now you wake up at 6, even if you went to bed late, and you don't feel rested. That's not just inconvenient, it has real consequences for mood. And sleep quality directly affects the reward system. Research from UC Berkeley shows that even one night of sleep deprivation reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex, important for positive emotion, and increases reactivity in the amygdala, meaning we get irritated more easily and find it harder to feel joy. One day of poor sleep and the world looks grayer. You're more easily annoyed. It's harder to smile. Things that would normally feel pleasant become neutral or even irritating. Now multiply that by years. If you've slept worse for years than you used to, your brain becomes chronically less able to feel joy, day after day, week after week. And finally, something increasingly discussed in recent research, chronic inflammation. As we age, the immune system changes in ways that aren't always beneficial. It becomes more irritable. It produces more inflammatory molecules, cytokines, even without a clear infection or injury. Scientists call this inflammaging, a blend of inflammation and aging, a smoldering low-grade chronic inflammatory state. And inflammation affects the brain directly. Inflammatory cytokines can cross the blood-brain barrier and influence neurotransmitter production, including dopamine and serotonin. Studies published in JAMA Psychiatry found a strong correlation between levels of inflammatory markers in the blood and symptoms of depression and anhedonia. More inflammation, less joy. Interestingly, more and more research points to the role of the gut in this process. Yes, the gut. The gut microbiome, those trillions of bacteria in your digestive tract, communicates with the brain through the vagus nerve, not metaphorically, literally, physically. Gut bacteria also produce precursors to serotonin. It's estimated that about 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut, the same serotonin that helps regulate mood. When the microbiome is out of balance because of poor diet, stress, antibiotics, lack of movement, it can influence mood, including that subtle inability to feel joy. I know that's a lot of information, and it might sound pessimistic, like you're a victim of your biology, like nothing can be done. But that's not the whole story. Knowledge is power. When you understand what's happening in your body, you can stop blaming yourself. You can stop thinking you're lazy, ungrateful, weak. And you can start acting wisely. Because each of these mechanisms can be modified, at least partly. You can't turn back time, but you can compensate, support, optimize. Now let's move to the most important part. What can you do to bring back some of that lost spark? But first, 3 important notes. First, not everything I say will be for you. We're all different circumstances, limits, preferences. Choose what resonates. Ignore the rest. You don't have to do everything. Second, don't expect miracles. Biological changes that build over years won't disappear in a week, but they can slowly shift. They can be compensated. You can learn to live with them in a way that brings more satisfaction. Third, a small step is better than none. You don't need to turn your life upside down. You don't have to sign up for a marathon, change jobs, or move to another country. One small change is enough. Then another. Patiently, consistently. Ready? Let's begin. The brain responds to novelty. We know that. The problem is that in adult life, novelty is rare. We have routines, obligations, schedules, responsibility. But novelty doesn't have to mean climbing Everest or moving across the world. Journalist and author Michael Easter popularizes the idea of micro-adventures, small deviations from routine that are enough to wake the brain up. Take a different route to work, eat lunch in the park instead of at your desk, talk to a stranger in line, walk into a store you never enter, listen to a genre of music you don't normally listen to, order a dish you've never tried. It sounds trivial, maybe even silly. I'm supposed to take a different route to work and I'll be happy. But research shows that even small changes increase activity in the reward system. The brain notices, oh, something new, interesting. It releases a bit of dopamine. It wakes up from lethargy. A woman, let's call her Annie, told me this story. For years she drove the same route to work. 20 minutes, same road, same lights, same buildings. She could have driven it with her eyes closed. One day, for no reason, she turned down a side street, no plan, no purpose. She just saw the turn and thought, why not? She discovered a small cafe she didn't know existed. She went in, ordered coffee, talked to the barista, a kind older woman who had run the place for 30 years. It was maybe 15 minutes, Annie said, but for the rest of the day I felt somehow lighter, like something opened, like the world was a bit bigger than I thought. 15 minutes, one cafe, no big plan, but it was enough to break the autopilot, to remind the brain that the world is bigger than homework home. Another story. Carl, 35, an engineer. For 10 years he ate lunch at his desk, scrolling email. Every day the same. Sandwich, screen, 5-minute break, back to work. He started going outside. Not far. There was a small park around the corner. He sat on a bench, ate the same sandwich, but outside. At first it felt like a waste of time, he told me. I could have answered a few emails, but then I noticed something weird. After lunch in the park, I had more energy. I was more creative. I solved problems faster. Those 15 minutes on the bench gave me more than 15 minutes at my desk. The brain needs breaks. It needs a change of scenery. It needs novelty. What you can do today. Plan one micro adventure for this week. It doesn't have to be ambitious. It just needs to be different than usual. It needs to break the autopilot. It needs to show your brain that the world is bigger than your everyday route. Physical activity raises dopamine levels. We've known that for decades. Movement also releases endorphins, serotonin, and BDNF, which supports neuroplasticity. But fewer people know that timing matters. Not just that you move, but when. Research from the University of Arizona suggests that morning exercise, done within the first hours after waking, often supports mood more strongly than exercise done in the evening. Why? Morning movement synchronizes circadian rhythms. It tells the body, the day has started, time for activity. That sets your system to a higher energy level for the rest of the day. It can also help you fall asleep more easily at night because the rhythm is clearer. I'm not talking about an hour at the gym. I'm not talking about running a marathon before breakfast. I'm talking about 10 minutes, 5 minutes. A walk around the block, stretching by an open window, a few squats, yoga on a mat in the living room, dancing to your favorite song in the kitchen. The form doesn't matter. What matters is that you move early, that you send a signal. Mark struggled with mornings. For years the alarm would ring. He'd hit snooze, get up at the last minute, rush to work. He felt tired by 9 a.m. He started with something simple, alarm 15 minutes earlier. Get up, open the window, take 10 deep breaths of fresh air. Then 5 minutes of stretching. Nothing more. I thought it wouldn't change anything, he said after a month. 15 minutes earlier, some stretching. What could it do? But it's weird. I have more energy, and mornings stopped being a nightmare. They became mine, my time before the rush begins. What you can do today, tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you start the coffee, before you enter a have-to mode, take 5 minutes for movement, any movement. See how you feel. One reason life loses flavor is that we're not present in it. You eat dinner thinking about work. You go for a walk while listening to a podcast. You talk to someone while checking messages. You drive while planning a meeting. Your body is in one place, your mind is in 10 others. And the brain's reward system doesn't react to what you don't notice. You can't feel pleasure from something you're not paying attention to. If you eat while thinking about work, it's as if you didn't eat, at least from the reward system's perspective. Research on mindful eating shows something fascinating. People who eat slowly and with attention report greater satisfaction from meals, even if they eat less, even if it's the same food. The same goes for everything. A fully attentive walk is a different experience than a walk with your head in your phone. A conversation with real listening is different than a conversation where you're waiting for your turn to speak. Psychologist Kirk Brown studied the link between mindfulness and well-being. He found that people who are more mindful in daily life experience more positive emotions, even when their life circumstances are similar to those of less mindful people. Mindfulness doesn't add anything to your life, it doesn't change circumstances, but it allows you to actually experience what you already have. I know Bob, who for years drank her morning coffee while checking email. Coffee was just fuel, a routine, a means to an end. She started experimenting. For 1 week, she drank coffee without her phone, just her and the cup. Taste, aroma, the warmth of the ceramic, the steam rising. It's the same coffee, she said, same brand, same roaster. But it tastes different, like I'm drinking it for the first time. Because for the first time, I was actually drinking it. What you can do today, choose one daily activity, eating, coffee, brushing your teeth, showering, and for 1 week, do it with full attention. No phone, no thinking about something else. Just you and the activity. In the last episode, I already mentioned how sleep quality affects the reward system. Now, what to do about it? I won't say obvious things like sleep 8 hours. Instead, 3 less known strategies with strong research support. First, morning light exposure. Your biological clock responds to light. Morning sunlight, even 10 to 15 minutes, sets your circadian rhythm so it's easier to fall asleep in the evening. Neurobiologist Andrew Huberman from Stanford emphasizes that morning light is one of the most powerful tools for regulating sleep. And it's free. No supplements, no apps, no special lamps. Just go outside. Second, temperature. Your body needs to cool down to enter deep sleep. Core body temperature has to drop by about 1 to 2 degrees. A cool bedroom, around 18 degrees Celsius, can significantly improve sleep quality. A warm shower or bath before bed can also help. Warming up dilates blood vessels and then speeds cooling afterward. Third, consistency above all. Research shows that consistent sleep and wake times matter more than total sleep duration. It's better to sleep 7 hours at the same time every day than 8 hours at changing times. Your brain likes predictability. The body prepares for sleep in advance, but only if it knows when to expect it. What you can do today, pick one thing, morning light, a cooler bedroom, or a consistent bedtime. Do it for a week, see what changes, and finally, diet, not in the weight loss sense, in the feeding your brain sense. The dopamine system needs specific building blocks. The amino acid tyrosine is a precursor to dopamine. You'll find it in protein-rich foods: eggs, fish, meat, nuts, seeds, legumes. Omega-3, especially DHA, help build neuron cell membranes. Best sources: fatty sea fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines. And the microbiome we talked about? It feeds on fiber, vegetables, fruit, fermented foods like sauerkraut, yogurt, kefir. Research from University College London showed that a diet rich in vegetables, fruit, and fish is associated with a lower risk of depression. That's not a coincidence. But a warning: this isn't about restrictive diets and guilt. It's about small shifts, trends, not perfection. And just as important, what to reduce. Sugar and ultra-processed foods cause sharp dopamine spikes, brief pleasure followed by a crash. Over time, that can dysregulate the reward system. So can constant scrolling on social media. Each like, each new post is a microdose of dopamine, pleasant but shallow and addictive. When you bombard your brain with easy rewards non-stop, it becomes harder for it to get excited about things that require effort. A conversation, a book, a walk without your phone. What you can do today: make one small dietary shift, one change, and consider a digital fast. 1 hour a day without your phone. See how you feel. I want to share a few more stories and studies that illustrate what we've been talking about. Researchers from Erasmus University in the Netherlands ran a thought-provoking study. They compared the happiness levels of people planning a vacation with those of people after a vacation. They followed over 1,000 people for several months, measuring well-being before the trip, during it, and afterward. The result: people who were planning a vacation were happier for weeks before leaving. Planning, looking at photos of places, imagining adventures, reading hotel reviews, brought real joy. Happiness rose for 8 weeks before the trip. But after returning, happiness quickly returned to baseline. After 2 weeks, there was no statistically significant difference between those who had gone on vacation and those who hadn't traveled at all. The only exception, people who had especially successful vacations, low stress, rich in positive experiences, kept their happiness elevated a bit longer. But even then, the effect faded after a few weeks. What does that mean? It tells us something important about the nature of happiness. Anticipation, looking forward to something good, is a powerful source of positive emotion, sometimes more powerful than the experience itself. Dopamine, as we said earlier, is released mainly while anticipating a reward, not while receiving it. That's why Christmas Eve can feel more exciting than Christmas Day. That's why planning a vacation can feel better than the vacation itself. How to use this in practice? It's worth having things in your calendar that you're looking forward to. They don't have to be big. You don't need to plan a year-long trip around the world. It can be coffee with a friend next week, a film you want to watch on Friday night, a book you plan to start, a walk in a new place on the weekend, a new recipe you want to try. The fact that something is ahead, something waiting on the horizon, brightens the gray skyline of everyday life. It gives your brain something to anticipate. It activates the reward system for weeks before the event itself. And one more thing, planning works best when it's specific. Not, sometime I'll go to the cinema, but on Saturday at 6 p.m., I'm seeing film X at cinema Y. The more concrete the image, the more dopamine. Tom was 37 and admitted something that embarrassed him. I have a good life, he said. But for years nothing excites me. My wife is wonderful, the kids are healthy, the job is stable. And I function. I don't live. We talked about the last time he felt excitement. It turned out that as a young man, he loved photography. He carried a camera everywhere and looked for frames in every situation. Then came work, family, responsibilities. The camera ended up in a closet. When he pulled it out, he planned something small, 1 walk a week with the camera in his hand. 2 months later, he had different energy. It's weird, he said. I take photos, bad ones, amateur ones. But when I look through the lens, the world looks different. I notice things. Light on leaves, shadow on a wall, a passerby's face. I didn't change my life, he added, but it's like color switched back on. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, yes, that really is his name, a Hungarian scholar who spent decades in the US, devoted his life to one question: when are people truly happy? He conducted thousands of interviews with artists, athletes, surgeons, chess players, climbers, programmers. He asked about the moments of greatest satisfaction. He discovered something surprising. People weren't happiest during rest, vacations, or entertainment. They were happiest during intense, challenging activity, during what he called flow, a state of full engagement. Flow is the moment when you lose track of time, when you're completely absorbed in what you're doing, when mind and action become one, when you forget worries, problems, even yourself. Maybe you know it, maybe you once played an instrument and 2 hours passed like 5 minutes. Maybe you wrote something and the world disappeared. Maybe you fixed something at home and forgot about dinner. Csikszentmihalyi found that flow is one of the strongest predictors of happiness and life satisfaction. People who regularly experience flow report higher well-being than those who don't, regardless of income, social status, or circumstances. What triggers flow? Activities that meet a few conditions. They're challenging enough to require focus, but not so hard that they frustrate you. They have a clear goal. You know what you're trying to achieve. They give immediate feedback. You can see the results of what you're doing. For some people it's music, for others climbing, for others programming, cooking, gardening, board games, writing, painting, making things, dancing. What matters is this: flow doesn't come from passive consumption. You won't experience flow by watching TV or scrolling social media. Flow requires activity, engagement, creating, effort. And one more important thing, flow activates the brain's reward system in a deeper, fuller way than simple pleasure. It's different from eating chocolate or watching a funny clip. It's deeper, more lasting satisfaction. The question is, when was the last time you experienced flow? And can you create space for it again? Is there something that used to give you flow that you no longer do? Alice was 43 and worked as an accountant. Solid job, predictable, safe. Every day is the same, she said. I get up, eat a breakfast, drive to work, sit at the computer, come back, eat dinner, watch a series, go to sleep. And again. A year goes by, and I don't know where it went. I asked what she did when she was younger, what she enjoyed, what absorbed her, what made her forget time. I used to sew, she said, with a strange expression, like remembering someone she hadn't seen in years. I designed clothes, remade old things. I had notebooks full of ideas. But that was long ago. Now I don't have time. I asked if she truly didn't have time, or if she just stopped treating it as a priority. She went quiet. Months later, she bought an old sewing machine from an online listing for about $150. I thought if it doesn't work, it's no big loss. She started with small things, a pillow, a bag made from scraps, things she could throw away if they turned out badly. Recently, she messaged me. Yesterday, I sewed a dress for my granddaughter. I sat at the machine for 3 hours and didn't even notice. When I finished, I felt good. Just good. I haven't felt like that in a long time. And you know what? My granddaughter loved it, but the most important thing was that I loved it. Me. What I made. The fact that I can still create something. That's flow. That's activating the reward system in a way no scrolling can provide. That's reclaiming a piece of yourself you thought you lost. There's one more thing before we summarize. All the strategies we've discussed, micro-adventures, morning movement, intentional presence, sleep optimization, feeding the brain, might seem small, insignificant. Can changing your route to work really change your life? One change? Probably not. But the cumulative effect, that's different. One micro-adventure a week is 52 new experiences a year, 520 new experiences in a decade. 5 minutes of morning movement a day is over 30 hours a year, 300 hours in a decade. 300 hours your brain spent with elevated dopamine instead of lethargy. One mindful coffee a day is 365 moments of presence a year. 365 moments where you were actually in your life. Small things add up. They build new neural pathways. They change habits. They reshape identity. It's not about one big change. It's about many small changes done consistently over time. Less dramatic than revolution, but it works. We're coming to the end. We covered a lot, from brain biology to the reward system to concrete strategies. Let's pause and summarize. What do I want you to remember from this episode? First, what you feel is raw. If life feels grayer than it used to, if excitement and spark are missing, if days blur together, you're not making it up. And you're not a worse person because of it. You're not lazy. You're not ungrateful. You're not weak. You're experiencing something many people experience, and there's a reason for it. Second, part of it is biological. Changes in the dopamine system, the natural decline with age, habituation, a brain that has seen so much that is harder to surprise, sleep disruption, worse nights that become worse days, inflammation, a quiet fire in the body that affects the mind. These aren't excuses, it's physiology, it's science, it's thousands of studies, and that means you can stop blaming yourself. You can look at yourself with more gentleness. Third, you're not powerless. There are things you can do, concrete, evidence-based, realistic, micro-adventures, movement at dawn, intentional presence, sleep optimization, feeding the reward system. You don't have to do everything. Choose one thing and start there. And remember, change doesn't have to be fast. A small step, repeated day after day, builds a new pathway in the brain. And one more thing, if what you feel is deeper, if you struggle to get out of bed, if your thoughts are very dark, please reach out for help. That's not weakness. That's good judgment. Thank you for staying until the end. What recently made you feel truly alive? Write it in the comments. If this episode was valuable, leave a like. And if you want more conversations like this, subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourself. Truly. Not because you have to, because you deserve to. And remember, you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to become a different person. It's enough to take one small step toward more presence in your life. One step today. See you in the next episode.